Welcome back everyone to Formula 1 2020 and to your preview for the 2020 Spanish Grand Prix, the middle of August. 30 degrees expected all weekend long. Should be an absolute cracker. Round 6 of the season in Barcelona. Our last of our triple header. That included 2 races at Silverstone and is the last of 6 races in 7 weeks. The Formula 1 calendar is so compact. But as you can see on screen, we've moved things on a little bit now to include the German Grand Prix, the Portuguese Grand Prix, and our return to Imola in November. This calendar is looking so crazy, so awesome. I really cannot wait now to move on to some of these races that we've not been to in such a long time. The first of those out of position races, Mugello on the 13th of September. Last time here in Spain wasn't the most exciting of Grand Prix. It was Bottas who was on pole position, but Lewis Hamilton on race day was superior. Victory for the British driver, a 1-2 for Mercedes. And last time out with a 1-2 on the grid, another Bottas pole position, it looked like it would be the same in the Grand Prix. But never discount Max Verstappen, a fantastic race from the Flying Dutchman, his first win of 2020, our first non-Mercedes win of the season as well. An awesome Grand Prix. Will we see a repeat of their tyre woes this time round? The Drivers' Championship, before we get into the juicy bits of the preview, looks like this, with Lewis Hamilton a 30-point lead over Max Verstappen, who jumps into second place after that victory in Silverstone. Charles Leclerc is up to 4th, Norris down to 5th. Alex Albon just keeping his nose in with that particular battle. Keep an eye for him over the next couple of weekends. Stroll, Perez and the 2 Renaults, your top 10. Sainz drops down to P11, only 15 points for the Spaniard. Going to his home Grand Prix, can we see a change in form? Sebastian Vettel is 13th. Our super sub Hülkenberg is 14th. Raikkonen, Latifi, Russell and Grosjean all yet to score on your team's championship. Not much change, it's still Mercedes that lead. Ferrari have jumped up to 3rd, just overtaking McLaren last time round. Racing Point last weekend, technically lost 1 point after being deducted 15 for illegal breaks, but gaining 14 with Stroll and Hülkenberg. Williams, the only team yet to score. In our junior series Formula 2, it's Callum Ilott who's taken the lead off the standings. Robert Schwartzman, who was leaded, has also been jumped by Christian Lundgaard. It's a Ferrari Junior 1-3. Also Schumacher down in P7 for the Ferrari Junior team, but it's the Renault Junior of Lundgaard in 2nd splitting the difference. Lundgaard currently leading our rookie championship. Tyre choice this weekend, little bit conservative, but in the middle of August in Spain, you can understand why. C1, C2 and C3 this time out, the same tyre choices as the first Silverstone race, so Mercedes could have a few headaches going into this one, especially when you see this. Goodness me, sun, and even more sun. 30 degrees, 29 degrees. I mean, goodness me. This is going to be a crazy race for attrition, for the drivers. For, like Max Verstappen says, staying hydrated really is going to be crucial. And it's one where there's going to be so much stress on the tyres, especially for those Mercedes cars. I think we could see a real mix-up. And whilst we're on the topic of sweltering, boiling conditions, how about we have a hot lap for your 2020 Spanish Grand Prix? Welcome everyone to your hot lap for the Formula 1 2020 Spanish Grand Prix. And of course, 30 conditions, hot lap, it had to be the Chile master himself, Carlos Sainz, we're on board with for today's lap. The home hero, 66 laps in the Grand Prix, down towards turn 1, a lovely sweeping section through turn 2, slightly up the hill, slight incline for turn 3, careful not to do a Grosjean and put on the power too much, just sweeping out wide onto that curbing for turn 4, end of sector 1. We've seen a couple of drivers go wide here, but if you just get nicely on the curbing, down towards the sharp braking for turns 5. Long little run here towards turn 6, no DRS zone and not really an overtaking opportunity, but a lovely sweeping left and then right-hander 6 and 7 up the hill. DRS activation will come up any moment now as we go through turn 7, bang, A fantastic overtaking opportunity during the Grand Prix, making sure we brake nice and early as we're starting the run up the hill towards the end of Sector 2 and the very tight and twisty Sector 3. We saw Gasly make a mistake on this particular corner in winter testing last season, but only the few chicanes left to go, making sure we get nicely on the outside curbing, as tight as we can on the inside curbing, letting on the power nice and early through the final corner, charging towards the line, and that is your hot lap here in Spain for the Spanish Grand Prix. Moving on over then to the newsroom, not a lot to report this week, but as I always say, when we're back to back Grand Prix, there's not really a lot of time to squeeze in a bit of news, but we do have some stories this morning, starting off with the Racing Point war. It's continuing to boil over and boil over. Last time out, we discussed the fact that the car had been deemed illegal, the brakes had been deemed illegal, the team docked 15 points in the constructors' standings and €400,000. Not much for Lawrence Stroll, but that's still a heck of amount of money for a small team like Racing Point. However, things have developed even more this weekend, and I'm sure as the weekend progresses, it will develop even more and even more, with teams such as Williams, McLaren, dropping out of their protest. Mercedes already were not willing to protest, but two teams are still willing to carry on. Ferrari and Renault are not happy. They will protest. Lawrence Stroll put out a pretty stunning, I would say, response to the allegations and to the hearing last time out. If you've not seen it, I did retweet it at the end of last week. It's on Sky F1 as well. But Lawrence Stroll really backing his team, which is quite nice to see actually. He doesn't usually make public speeches. But Renault and Ferrari, full steam ahead. Everyone else just backing off a little bit. So keep your eye on this one as it unfolds. Williams will have a new driver in FP1 for the second time this season. You might remember back at the start of the year for the Styrian Grand Prix, Jack Aitken had his first run in a Formula 1 car. This weekend for the Spanish Grand Prix, it's Formula 2 driver Roy Nissany who will take the wheel of the Williams. He's had a difficult season, not the best in Formula 2, but he's part of that Williams young driver programme. Will we see him potentially win a couple of races in F2 and make the progression to F1? Unlikely, but it's nice for him to have an opportunity this weekend. The fact that Aitken and Nissany have had runs this year for Williams, I just wonder whether we might see a certain Dan Ticktum in a few rounds' time. And just before we leave the newsroom, a bit of news away from F1, but I just wanted to mention it. Former Red Bull young driver Antonio Felix da Costa has become Formula E champion, defeating Jean-Eric Vergne, Sebastian Buemi, Stoffel Van Dorn, all of them absolutely dominating the championship this year with 2 races to go. A truly deserving champion. And we will leave the newsroom there for this week. As always, back to back races, it's sometimes very difficult to find juicy stories. So fingers crossed by the time we get to Spa in a couple of weeks' time. Can't wait to go to Spa. We'll have a few more stories, and maybe the Racing Point story will have even more dramas along the way. Right, shall we head over then to what I always say is my favourite part of the weekend, just because of how silly I make myself look. Prediction time for the Spanish Grand Prix. As always, I give my predictions, my 5 predictions in the race, 3 in qualifying, and at the end I will give you your grid to put your predictions in the comment section down below, and the 2 most liked will be featured in tomorrow's video. But this weekend for the Spanish Grand Prix, this is my predictions. Lewis Hamilton, I've gone with a pole position. Valtteri Bottas making it a Mercedes 1-2. I feel like it's a given at this point. Max Verstappen in P3. But as you can see, for the race, I've gone a little bit different. Even hotter conditions than we saw in Silverstone 1. Surely Mercedes are going to have to do a 2-stop. I'm not too sure Red Bull are going to need to, especially if they can get through some of their drivers on the hard tyres, on the medium tyres in Q2. I've gone with a Verstappen win. But perhaps even more crazier, I've gone with an Alex Albon first podium in F1, the place where Verstappen, of course, got his first win and first podium in F1 as well. And a Nico Hülkenberg / Perez, we're still not quite sure who's going to be in that Racing Point car. I've gone with them on the podium, with Hamilton 4th, Bottas P5. I know it's risky, but if you want to tell me how wrong I am, here is your grid for this weekend's Grand Prix. I want to know your pole position, your front row, and who's going to be the biggest shock in qualifying. Keep an eye out for Carlos Sainz. I think he could have a great lap in Q3. And in the race, your race winner, who will be on that podium, that first retirement of the Grand Prix, driver of the day, and who will be best of the rest. And again, if you want to be featured in tomorrow's video, that is your grid. Before we go, Fantasy League time. After being in what was about 3,200 something position a couple of weekends ago, I've now made it all the way up to 235th place. My team doing the job last time out, and this weekend Gasly's out, the Hulk is back in. Whether it'll be Hulkenberg or Perez, again, we're still not too sure, but either driver will pick up the points, whoever races for Racing Point. And as always, the code is on screen if you want to join. 3,400 of you now in the league, so thank you all very much for playing. And your schedule for this weekend, screenshot if you like, if you're on mobile devices or laptop, looks like this. 10 o'clock is our first session of the weekend, practice 1 for Formula 1, practice 2 and Formula 2 qualifying on Friday. Saturday, practice 3 qualifying at 1 o'clock with the feature race in the evening, with Formula 2 sprint race in the morning on Sunday, and the big event 10 past 2 in the afternoon, your Formula 1 2020 Spanish Grand Prix. And that is it for your preview for this weekend. 6 races in 7 weeks. It's been a marathon, but I'm absolutely loving it. Will Verstappen be back on top this time around? Leave your predictions in the comment section down below. Thank you all very much for watching. If you are new and you've made it this far and you have enjoyed, feel free to subscribe and hit a like button if you did enjoy. Thanks guys, and I hope to see you all in the next one.